Okay, hello everybody. If you could find your seats, we are going to be getting started. So, as I mentioned yesterday, my name is Jenny Sitchell. I am the Operations Director at the National Council on Independent Living, and I am so thrilled to welcome you today to our session that we are having focused on artificial intelligence. So y'all probably know artificial intelligence as its acronym, AI, and it is proving to 100% be a game changer for people with disabilities. Nickel has been working with the SIL to not only reclaim the past, but also pave the way to the future with AI. Today, we have an amazing panel to guide y'all through some of that AI world. Remember, this is a very vast world. So they're gonna intro you here a little bit to some of this. And I just wanna say thank you to our panelists. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator B and panelists, Victor, Rylan, Allison, Megan, and Maria. Please give them a warm welcome with me.
Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Bea Cavello. I am the Director of Emerging Technologies at the Aspen Institute. I'm joined by an incredible panel today, and really what we hope to communicate in this conversation is how AI is changing the landscape for the way that we think about technology and disability, and to explore some of the opportunities and challenges that we may face. Really looking at opportunities for this community to shape the future, both of the technology and the world using these tools. I'm joined by Dr. Victor Pineda, Megan Bentley, Rylan Rogers, Maria Town, and Allison Sutton-Levy. And we're really excited to start this conversation today, and I'll ask each of my panelists here to just give a brief introduction of yourself while answering the question, how is AI showing up in your world, in your work, as it relates to communities of disability? So do you want to take a start?
I was hoping to go last, but okay, Bea. My name's Allison Levy, and I work for the U.S. Access Board. If you haven't heard of that, it's a small independent agency, and we support developing guidelines and standards on accessibility throughout our society. So, what was the question? I'm sorry.
How is AI showing up in your work?
So how is AI showing up in our work? We were tasked last year to develop public comments and to do hearings with people with disabilities to learn the benefits and the pitfalls behind AI. So we have a lot of information that we gathered through that experience. We partnered with AAPD and CDT and had a great experience learning a lot. So I'm happy to impart some of what we learned with you today.
Wonderful. Maria.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Town, and I'm with the American Association of People with Disabilities. And AI is showing up in AAPD's work in a lot of ways. Like Allison just mentioned, we do a lot of work trying to shape AI-related policy at the federal and state level. And this work is meant to reduce disability bias or ableist bias within artificial intelligence tools, and to really push that reducing bias is not enough. AI tools need to be pro-equity tools. On a more kind of tangible level, and on a more positive note, we're seeing AI really have a variety of applications for disabled people, for people with communication disabilities or information processing disabilities. We see AI tools like ChatGPT or Grammarly be used to improve access to communication. As an organization, AAPD has started to provide some AI tools as reasonable accommodations for our own employees so they can be more successful at work. And of course, we're seeing tools like Be My AI being used to increase independence for people who are blind or who have other spatial sensoring processing disabilities. So generally at APD, we are trying to work to ensure that disabled people can continue to benefit from the promise of AI and to ensure that artificial intelligence does not actually increase or create new barriers for disabled people.
Good morning. I'm Rylan Rogers, and I'm the Director of Disability Policy at Microsoft. So AI and my job are very linked and connected. I will share a couple things. In my job in the policy world, a lot of the work that I've been doing both in the United States and internationally is to work to ensure that as regulations are in place around ethics and responsibility in the AI space, that it does not block accessible use cases, that we have those really important conversations about privacy and security and accessibility simultaneously so that we're creating a regulatory environment where the power of AI can be used by those of us that are disabled. On a personal level, it's been kind of a fascinating time to be in a tech company and use AI. I'm dyslexic, and AI for me was the biggest jump since spell check in terms of technology that I could use. Prior to AI, I used an editor for all of my external documents, so much so that I married him. I married a high school English teacher because he was an excellent editor. He is now retired from that activity because I've been able to train AI over my language. And so, as my husband says, it speaks Rylan and can translate Rylan into something that is appropriate for others to read. And then the other piece of it is now we're at a place where we have agentic AI and agents. And just last week, I worked with an engineer at Microsoft to solve a time problem for me. I'm in the disability policy space, and a lot of things that happen there are around regulations. And a key part of America's regulatory process is RFPs and comments. And many of us, request for proposals. Request for proposals, thank you. I appreciate the support. But those public comments and what they're saying back is important to understand. And often, because many of you in this room are extraordinary at your jobs and your lives, there are thousands and thousands of comments. So it was my hobby weekend activity to read through comments on key proposals and try to understand. And now I have an AI agent that looks at the various public documents, reads all of the comments, tells me what percentage of those comments address things in the disability space, what comments are what I have defined as favorable to accessibility, and then gives me summaries and quotes and ties me back to those key comments. So instead of reading 5,000 comments, I might only need to read 150 of the ones that will most influence my work. And the AI agent does the rest of it for me and sends me a lovely email with the summary every morning at 7:30 a.m. And I'm very excited about it.
That's hard to follow. Is this working?
Yep.
Okay.
You can bring it a little closer.
Okay, is this better? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Bentley. I've recently left Visa, where I was the head of global AI governance policy. I helped develop the first AI governance framework for all 31,000 employees, risk frameworks, worked with the inaugural team. It didn't exist at Visa before we created the function. And I landed in this role because of my disability advocacy, because of the education the man to my left particularly helped foster. And I was Visa's disability, the global leader for talent for the disability ERG. I have since left in order to focus on the disability and AI sector as a category. I have an ethos that all AI use cases were born from disability use cases, or all AI technology was born from disability use cases. If you go back far enough, think about Stephen Hawking and computer vision, how Midjourney wouldn't exist without comparing alt text to images. Siri was born from Dragon. It goes on and on. So if you go back far enough, all of this was, it's not these tech companies enabling us necessarily, it's really us enabling them to deliver upon their technology and develop it.
I also am proud to say that at Visa I was able to encourage the team to decouple disability and health status from being one category for bias testing and separate them into two. So there's a lot of work still to be developed in AI governance as a sector, but now I'm focused on AI literacy and education policy on this category specifically. And I'm just curious, how many people in here use AI?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And how many are still about to embark upon it? It's okay if you haven't.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay, cool. Well, certainly we have a lot to talk about today.
Thank you very much, Megan. My name is Dr. Victor Pineda. About a year ago, I took on the role as the executive director of the Berkeley Center for Independent Living. And that is a responsibility that I carry very humbly because, like many of you, I was very much nurtured, mentored, and inspired by Judy Heumann. And so right before she passed, she said, we need a new generation to think about how to revitalize and reinvigorate the IL community in Berkeley, and obviously partnering with Theo Brady and the National Council. This panel came up because a topic that we really should all be thinking about. So I come to you as a fellow, as a peer, but also as somebody that's spent 25 years looking at systemic change and transformation. Megan forgot to mention that she's one of our board members at the Berkeley CIL. And for us, I think it's about really noting that the current threats to our community are coming from many different angles. And to navigate through these storms, we need organizational tools and personal empowerment. And the discussion we're about to have should leave with three topics, three takeaways. Number one, how do you build your sense of understanding and confidence that you can unleash your organization's potential in service delivery? Number two, how do you ensure that our advocacy is better targeted with these tools, because these tools can help you really refine messaging and make influence more powerful. And number three, we can all use this for grant writing, grant checking, and grant alignment between your services and different funders and their priorities. So I want to ensure that we leave away with a practical framework as how our independent living centers can be empowered and advance our missions, both individually and collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, all panelists. Now, Megan asked the room, who here is using AI? And almost all of you put up your hands, which is so exciting to see. And Dr. Victor Pineda mentioned that we want to focus our conversation today on practical applications and ways that this community can leverage these technologies to achieve our goals. And so I want to start off with Rylan, asking you a little bit, help us paint a picture. Many of us have used AI, but there are also many different types of AI that are out there. So as we're having this conversation, what are some examples of AI that people might be interacting with?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of slides that may pop on the screen or may not. Wow, that's like super magic. That never happens. I always think that my role in life is to show that tech fails for the Microsoft employee too. But they did pop up on the screen. And I think that Megan made a really important point that this is not necessarily new. It may feel new, like we're all in this giant AI wave, but AI as a part of computer science has been around since the 50s. And we are seeing sort of, I'd like to think about it as three distinct sort of waves, and we have the first wave, which was really about AI that you see to generate captions, to take the information and do some of that automating. And you've seen where the waves have come together, like the quality of AI captions is dramatically better now than it was 5 years ago. And we'll talk a little bit about why and the data story about that. And then we got to generative AI, which is this idea that it can make things for you. You can put in a prompt and say, I need to write a grant that responds to this proposal. You put in the proposal language, and I want to talk about all of my background and resources that can meet that. You put in your language about maybe your reports from the last 5 years, and then it takes all of that and it gives you a really pretty decent first draft. And the other part of generative that you see is you can generate images. That's a really interesting piece because it's an area where we see some of the real weaknesses around data and bias in terms of the images that can be generated related to representing disability. So that's a whole piece. But now we're at the beginning of I can't even say it, but agentic AI, and this idea that it's not just generating something, but it can do steps of your work for you. And so you can create an agent or multiple agents that can do things like take all that information I said and look and see which pieces of it are disability and then only give me the disability piece. You can also do things like have it, I have an agent related to my calendar because my calendar I've lost all control. It's it's a disturbing place that no one should have to look at. But one of the things that I mess up a lot is making sure appointments or commitments get appropriately put on my calendar. So I put an agent in that takes all incoming email and outgoing email, and if I say yes to something, it automatically puts an Outlook event with the details of where I'm supposed to be when on my calendar. So it's like a double check for Ryland failure. It's quite excellent. I haven't yet told my husband that I'm doing it, and he thinks I've really improved on showing up where I'm supposed to be. But so that's where we are in terms of what's happening now. And I think it's always important to understand the different sort of layers of what's happening in AI, because what happens next is even further. And it brings up really interesting questions about how do we address some of the gaps in the data pieces. It also brings up really interesting questions about how do you know where your autonomy is in there, and what's your role in checking and making sure that it's representing what you want and what you need so that the AI is working for us instead of us working for the AI.
Very important. And can you expound a little bit, and this is something that Maria mentioned as well, but you talked a little bit about the disability data gap and what that means for us. So what is the role of data in AI, and what does the disability data gap mean?
Yeah, so on the screen, again, we see sort of the 3 types of AI and the 3 pieces, but I think it's helpful to think about the data issues along those 3 pieces. And so what we know is that large language models and AI are based on the world as it is. And the world as it is racist, sexist, and ableist. And so that creates a real challenge about that AI can exaggerate that, make it worse, create a bigger divide. It also, frankly, creates an opportunity because we're building a world pretty actively right now, and we're building technology. So previously, when we think about accessibility, you often think about having to remodel something to make it accessible. And now we can build something from the beginning to make it accessible. So there's a real tension there, but you have to understand what's missing in order to build correctly. And I think this is super important when we think about bringing AI tools into our work, that idea of procurement, or what are we going to buy? Because we can and should be asking questions about the models that they're using, and we can and should be asking for models that are corrected to be more representative. And so there's a couple of things that are happening simultaneously. Back to the piece on captions, where AI captions used to be, to use a technical term, kind of crap. And now they've gotten better because the models are being fed by lots and lots of language inputs, and that makes the captions more accurate. But what we saw was missing was speech that's impacted by disability experience. So the speech of an individual with Down syndrome, the speech of an individual with Parkinson's, the speech of an individual with CP, the captions were still crap. And not just captions, but the ability to do voice input, to ask Siri or Alexa, now I turned on all of your devices, to do something. If you had a non-typical speech, it wasn't working for you. And so in order to fill that gap, all of the major tech companies came together and invested in the data, working and hiring individuals from the disability community to share their speech data so that we could build and fill in the gap of the language models. But it goes back to my earlier comment on regulation. There's a biometric privacy law in the state of Illinois that prevents people from Illinois who live in Illinois from participating in giving their speech data, or frankly selling it for reimbursement to the tech companies, because it's biometric private data. So there's that tension about, are we blocking accessibility by protecting privacy? So those pieces all fit together.
So-
and then the other, I'll say one more tiny thing and then I'll move on. The other thing is we are now starting to buy large amounts of data from disability companies and disability apps because it fills gaps. Microsoft a year ago announced that we were buying the data that's generated by Be My AI because it makes all of our models better and more inclusive.
Thank you. Those are some great examples. And I actually want to build on top of that because you talked about how, although we're aware of this disability data gap, although we're aware of the historic and current biases that are shaping these technologies, there's also a lot of room for opportunity for our community to actually shape what the future looks like. And so, Victor, I want to come to you and really help us to understand what is your vision or your hope for how our Centers for Independent Living can make use of and shape the future of AI.
Well, thank you so much, Bea, and thank you, Rylan, for creating a level-setting perspective. I think that when you look at service delivery, many of our centers had to transform from a lot of paperwork to a digital sort of platform. Now we're on the verge of taking all of that digital knowledge or the digital data and turning it into knowledge, meaning that unstructured data, a bunch of files in OneDrive or Google Drive, creates the kind of the personal cloud, or kind of the ecosystem of services and programs and HR documents and history of grants. All of those are, in essence, scattered through your staff's capabilities and through the divisions within the different departments in your agencies. What could be right around the corner is by creating kind of a unified AI strategy, your center, like CIL, will start to have unexpected surprises. One unexpected surprise was one of our staff members, Lawrence, had a woman that was so desperate. She really was on the verge of losing hope. She got a letter from the Social Security Administration that her benefits would be cut off, that she would lose her benefits. She did not know how to respond. Lawrence took a photo of the denial letter and wrote a simple prompt. Here's the basic information on our consumer. Write a compelling appeal letter. In 30 seconds, Lawrence handed her an appeal letter. 3 weeks later, she got the denial overturned. She won it. She wanted her services. She got the services that she needed, and our center changed the course of her life. So these are the ways that our staff can be empowered to be more customized approaches, deeper engagement with each consumer, but also serve more consumers faster, right? So we're taking everything we've learned, and we want to work with all of you to develop a IL AI Academy so that we can all enter this new phase together with our consumers. Because these tools are being used against us in the way that these computer systems and government agencies are trying to audit and basically sift out, folks from these programs. But without using these tools, we're on the receiving end of these complex, large data analysis. As independent living center directors and staff, we can respond to those threats with the powerful tools and the confidence that we're doing the best we can for those that rely on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you spoke to some very tangible examples of the ways that these technologies can truly help people to change their lives, right? I would say, the technology isn't actually changing our lives. We are being empowered to change our lives through these technologies, and it's very exciting. At the same time, as our Centers for Independent Living are exploring these tools, we want to approach it in a responsible fashion. And Megan, you have a depth of expertise in this issue area. So I'm curious, can you give us a little bit of perspective of what are some of the things that people should look out for? Rylan mentioned questions to ask in procurement. As you're thinking through recommendations for our CALs, what are the ways in which we can approach AI use responsibly?
Sure. How many of you have developed an AI governance policy for your organization? Wow, okay.
Much for fewer
How many
hands.
know what that is? No. AI is still very, AI governance as a category is still somewhat new. But I'd say, they say what, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. It comes from accounting. The data that goes into your AI systems is the data that'll be the output. That'll be the base. So taking that on a more conceptual level, whatever your culture and practices are as an organization, the more you use AI, that's what's going to get baked in. Do you have a good culture? That's going to get reflected. Do you have a culture that needs a little help or isn't quite there yet? That's going to get reflected. So being proactive to think through what kind of AI ecosystem you want to have within your organization is very, very important. I'd also say we need folks to engage with these systems more. And Rylan was talking about how they were buying data for speech data to improve captions. As someone who uses captions every day regularly, I still don't like AI generated captions. I like human generated captions because it's still not there yet. It might have a good day, but generally speaking, it's not something that's reliable enough for me. It'll get there, hopefully, but also as more data gets inputted into these systems, you might correct it, but more data is still coming in and it could go backwards. So it's never this one and done situation that you give it a set of data and you hope it'll stay that way. It's a constant process of change. So that means you need to set up your own governance policies to flow with this change yourselves. I am helping organizations with their policy development, so you can find me after. But I'd say in terms of challenges, I also would encourage you to understand how your beneficiaries are using AI. A friend of mine has dysphonia and can speak a bit, and they used his voice awesomely to create a deep fake of his voice using what little he could speak. So now he can engage with society on a more equitable level. But he can't call 911. It'll do a deep fake detection. So what he's had to do is call his local emergency services and try to find a way so that when his phone number calls, not to decline the call. So there's ways with which your beneficiaries are going to be using AI, and they're going to be denied services. So understanding those use cases and developing that conversation is going to be very important. I'd also say that, how many people have excitement about AI? How many people have fears about AI? Okay, wow. Yeah, and it's with good reason. There's a lot of reasons to be concerned with it. But I would say the governments, the corporations, the world is using AI, oftentimes against our community. But that doesn't mean we fight AI. We have to fight fire with fire sometimes. And so I would say for those who haven't considered AI yet, unfortunately, if you don't want to, you kind of need to, because we know that DOGE is using AI in order to decide what sort of funding is going where. And I know an organization that does STEM education and math education, and because of the word inequality in the, does not equal, for these math students, they denied them funding. So in order to get around that, you need an AI to understand the brain of an AI and fight back. So that's what Victor was talking about, is using AI for appeals letters. But don't just rely on the AI. A human in the loop, I'm still a big believer in the human in the loop. Not everyone believes in it anymore given the rapid pace of development, but I do.
Say a little bit on what is human in the loop?
Oh, great. Great question. Sorry. When you live in this world, you use things that you think everyone knows. So a human in the loop means you don't just rely on the AI to tell you what's what or give you your output and you send it off. What Victor's team did, they had AI generate the letter, but the human reviewed it to be sure it was accurate. It didn't have any language that they disagreed with. It wasn't missing anything. And so having a member of your team as part of this process is really important for you to effectively use these tools. I also suggest to people that you not ask it to give you the answer you're looking for. Use your own cognition to write answers to questions, and then gut check with the AI, is there anything that could be improved, or is there a way to revise it for clarity? Because there's now scientific research that your own cognitive thinking processes will decrease if you don't do that. So there's a lot, I could talk about a lot of things, B.
Those are some great examples. And I love especially what you said about some pro tips on how to use these tools effectively, right? Rather than trying to necessarily turn over drafting of something full cloth, to certainly review the outputs from an AI system, or write your own answers and then seeing how they might be improved or augmented using these tools. I think those are some really practical recommendations. And building off of that, I want to, well, one, can we just give a round of applause to everyone who participated in yesterday's lobby day and policy action on the Hill? I'm fortunate to live here in Washington, D.C., and I am so appreciative to everyone who has come in to advocate on these important issues. And I want to turn our attention, because Megan, you mentioned this, how governments are using AI, how AI is showing up in our policy conversation, to ask Maria, yesterday, folks were advocating on a lot of different issues related to disability on the Hill. But what are some policy issues related to AI that people should be paying attention to?
It's a great question. So I want to kind of take us back in time a little bit, 6 months, a year. And Allison mentioned that the Access Board and AAPD worked together to conduct a series of public forums on disabled people's experiences with artificial intelligence. And these public forums were conducted in response to an executive order focused on AI governance. And the executive order articulated a need for government to establish standards on things like the use of biometric data in AI and the use of AI in high-risk scenarios, like when should a dam be open, right? And the goal of that executive order was really to again, make sure that we're benefiting from AI and that communities aren't being harmed by it. With the new administration coming in January, that executive order is done. Our MOU was terminated. And a lot of the efforts at the federal level to regulate or govern AI have stalled. And to Megan's point, we are now seeing the government, especially the executive branch, use artificial intelligence in a way that is uncontrolled and in a way that their primary goal is harm. Right? In the list of banned words that came out, did you all see that? Yeah. Right? Disability's on it. Yeah. And all they're doing is putting these words into algorithms saying, pause any grant with that word in it. That's the example Megan was highlighting. So, where there are real opportunities to advocate in a proactive measures at the state level. And I want to give a shout out to many incredible advocates, some of whom are in this room, many of whom are across the country, who actually paused some very significant harm from happening during the debate around the budget reconciliation bill, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I don't like saying it, but that drafts of that bill originally included a moratorium that would have prevented states from regulating artificial intelligence for 10 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't just a moratorium on paper, it was, we will remove your BEAD funding if you do. Now, BEAD was a program that was set up to provide states with funding to bridge the digital divide or the connection divide to make sure that communities had access to broadband internet, which in my mind is now a very old school kind of technology issue, but still a very important one. And disabled people experience a very significant digital divide. And so you had states that were potentially going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for connectivity if they tried to regulate AI. That moratorium was not in the final bill, which is like, everyone should applaud. That is a very big deal.
Yes.
I spent so much time on that
Yeah.
in my compliance work.
So let's talk about what's happening at the state level, because it's a lot. Anyone here from the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition? Okay, from Colorado. So, Colorado, the state of Colorado has been working to set up its own AI governance law. The Colorado Cross Disability Coalition has been working really hard with AAPD on that. The requirements that were created by the public group that the state had set up to do this were actually recently rejected by the governor. So we have to start over again. Similarly, New York established a local law, New York City established a local law requiring that any vendor who used artificial intelligence put that tool through a civil rights audit. And civil rights audits for AI are becoming more and more kind of popular as a tool to ensure that AI is not sexist or racist or ableist, even though we know that that is almost impossible. But one of the things that keeps happening is that disability is missing from these audit frameworks. And so when New York City was setting up this local law, disability advocates really from across the country, and particularly in New York City, showed up to provide public comment, basically demanding that the city add disability as a component in its audit framework. And what the city said is, there's not enough data for the audit. Going back to the kind of issue of disability data in AI, the disability data gap that we see across all of our systems is directly impacting our ability to create AI tools that support our community. But that doesn't mean that we stop demanding this, right? We're advocates, we keep going. Rylan mentioned the law in Illinois around biometric data, so there are all of these opportunities. And so pay attention to what's happening in your state and where AI may be coming up in governance situations. This can include things like your state's Medicaid system. We are seeing states begin to use AI tools in their state benefit system, whether that's Medicaid or SNAP or housing. In other areas, you may be seeing autonomous vehicles begin to be deployed. If AV vendors are smart, they should be talking to SILs to figure out
Yes.
how deployment should work.
Yes.
And if they're coming to you, you should ask critical questions like, has your vehicle in its safety testing been tested with people with disabilities? There was research from a few years ago that found that autonomous vehicles perceive chair users as trash cans.
Yikes.
Yikes. Yikes, big yikes. So, what kind of safety testing has your company done with this vehicle? How is your vehicle going to interact with disabled people who have different communication needs? What kind of data has this vehicle been trained on? If the vehicle has been trained in scenarios as opposed to kind of real life applications, have disabled people shown up in those possible scenarios? He is wearing a shirt that says the future is accessible. And we have to essentially really kind of needle at folks who are determining what the future looks like to make sure it looks like us,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
for the future to be accessible, the future is also disabled.
Yes.
We are there.
Yes.
I want to bring Allison into this conversation because you've talked about a lot of the ways that we in this community can get involved influencing policy efforts. And in many ways, the Access Board is a representation of like what it looks like to actually encode some of these responsibilities and think about the ways in which people inside of the government are working hard to uphold the demands that we have for representation and frankly disability justice. So shifting a little bit from influencing policy to the ways in which the government might actually be thinking about accessibility, I want to ask you a little bit, how are things going in the at the federal level, and also how is the Access Board thinking about implementing AI or disability inclusion as AI is implemented?
Great questions, Bea. Thank you. I can speak to what we've done in the past. Maria already spoke to what's going on currently, to be honest with you. It was a great partnership we had with AAPD and CDT, the Center for Democracy and Technology. So I can speak to what we did last year. We heard from almost 2,000 people across the United States about a whole bunch of different areas across society in terms of employment, education, transportation, just a whole host of areas. We hosted 5 webinars, one to kind of level set and help educate people about the basics of AI. And then 3 were actually public hearings, and we also posted a request for public comments in the Federal Register, all about what are the experiences people are having with AI, what are the pros, what are the cons. And I think from that, we have a repository of great information. All of our webinars are posted to our website, which is very simple. It's just access-board.gov/AI. If you go to that website, you can get some basic information about AI, hear from people who already provided comments from federal agencies to private industry, to people with disabilities and nonprofit organizations. I think it's a good place for you to start if you're new to AI, and even if you have some basic understanding, to kind of get up to speed. I can tell you I'm 4th generation hard of hearing, and there's an idiom in sign language where basically you say, train gone, sorry. We're at a point right now, folks, where you need to leverage your abilities within the Centers for Independent Living and get engaged. Otherwise, that train will leave the station and we will not be on it. So to complement what my other colleagues have said already on the panel, use their tips, use their strategies. If you see something that looks unusual when you're using AI, say something. If you don't have an option, or if you do have an option to opt out of actually sharing your data, you want to stop and think about how that data is being used. Is it going to be used in a good way, or is it going to be used in a bad way? And make sure that you're leveraging your ability to control what happens with your data. I think it's just really important to use the power that you have in the SILs and to make sure that you're going out and talking with your representatives about what your concerns are. Again, talk to all the points that have already been shared here today, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to engage with each other, engage across the country, and get involved with AI now, or else that train will be out of the station. You'll be missing that opportunity.
That's kind of a important call to action. You know, we do have just a little bit over 10 minutes. B, I want to make sure the audience can also, you know, leverage this incredible wealth of knowledge on stage. Maybe we give them 2 minutes to introduce themselves and their tables and ask each other a question, or come with a question, and we can answer them.
Sounds great.
Do you think that's a good?
Yes, do we have microphones in the audience to be able to hear from the audience?
Perhaps just introduce yourself to your neighbor, 2-3 minutes. Talk about this topic, and then we'll come back and open up some questions, all right?
Awesome. So the question that we're going to have you discuss at your tables is, how are you within your cells using AI, or how are you interested, if you're not using AI yet, to use AI? So we'll take 2 to 3 minutes here to discuss at your tables.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to bring it back in. And I'm going to ask you to give a round of applause to everyone here in the audience. Thank you for being part of this conversation. What we're going to do now is we have a microphone. We're going to have a microphone that we're going to pass around. So I'm going to ask for you to cease your conversations. Thank you. All right, show of hands, does anyone want to share an example from their table discussion of how your Center for Independent Living is using AI today? Anyone want to share? We have a microphone that we'll bring to you. Yes, we have one person. You have your hand up in the front. Can we have the microphone brought over here? And then we'll come to the person in the back there as well, right here. Oh,
We lost him.
the microphone is journeying right up in the front here.
Or the back first.
Other one.
Okay, we'll come to you next. Super.
Hi, my name is Michael Christian, and I'm not with a SIL. I'm the executive director of the statewide Independent Living Council of Alaska. But like a lot of SILCs, we've started a youth leadership forum, and part of that forum involves a process of person-centered planning for our youth. So we've developed an AI tool to facilitate that person-centered planning. It isn't entirely done through AI. What it does is it enables that human-to-human interaction to be higher quality. We're able to work with more youth, put out a better person-centered plan for them, and be able to give them more of the attention that they really need. At the same time, we've developed, well, we're still in the process of developing this other tool that is around emergency planning, and creating some simulated disaster scenarios that will be incorporated into it's called our Youth Rise program. It's Youth Ready in Safety and Emergency Management. And then here in a couple of weeks, we're going to start work on a supported decision-making agreement project in which we will work with the individual who wrote our SDMA law in Alaska to do essentially a brain dump into this app that will help people get started on their own supported decision-making agreement and then be able to take that into a SIL or an ADRC or a DDRC or whatever agency may be able to work with them to put those final touches on that SDMA so that hopefully our state will not be as heavy a utilizer of guardianship. And then the next one after that will be a tool to help students take charge of their IEPs by creating a tool that will enable them to essentially have a self-directed IEP.
Wow, those are some very powerful, concrete examples. Let's give them a hand.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we had one person right here in the front. If you'll keep your hand up so the microphone can find you, here you go. So how are you using AI today? Microphone's coming from your right.
I use AI. I have a phone in my pocket that I can use. Like when I use my phone to call someone, I can use it as an AI.
It's a great example.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
you.
for sharing.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
we're going to take one more example back here with the hand raised. Yep, waving. There you go. Yep, perfect.
So I want to, my name is Jenny Stonemeyer. I'm a SIL director in North Texas, but I wanted to talk about the ways that we are not yet using AI because we have concerns about privacy, specifically for our consumers, and really ask the panel and maybe Nicole to elevate the issue of privacy and protecting privacy for consumers as we implement these tools for not only the movement but for our centers individually, because it's really terrifying to me, to be perfectly honest, and I don't want to put our consumers in a position of losing rights, losing services, losing benefits, because we've decided to use an AI tool.
Thank you for that. Thanks to everyone in our audience who shared examples of the ways that they're thinking about using AI in their context and raising these really, I am really glad that you brought up these questions of privacy. They're near and dear to my heart as well. And I think that, I think we'll even have a slide, yes, talking about ways to continue to engage in this conversation. So this is not the end, but it is the end of our panel here. So I'm going to leave off with our panelists in just a sentence or two. What is one hope that you have for how this community can continue to engage on AI?
I think it's really important just to engage with each other. Teach yourselves as much as you can about AI. AI of tomorrow is basically like the internet of yesterday. It's changing the way we work, the way we live, the way we breathe. Make sure you're getting engaged. Do not be left behind. Make sure you're engaging with each other and using the power of your voice to really amplify the disability needs.
Maria.
One of my hopes is that anyone, anywhere who is setting up an AI governance policy will not only include disabled people from the start, but that disabled people will be the leads in setting up AI governance policies.
Yes.
think the earlier point about the reality that this innovation is part of the legacy and power of the disability community is critical. Disabled people are creators of technology, and we are also often first adopters of technology. And we are at a moment where we can use this technology to ensure that our voices, our role, and our power is accelerated, but it takes critical advocacy to deal with some of the risk and harms. It's the tools and weapons, and we need to own our ability to make the tools and use them for the world we want.
I'm going to say three things to close. One, first, from a practical standpoint, I know a lot of you are having visits on the Hill. Before you visit any of your senators or reps, make sure you ask AI, what are their priorities? Put your priorities in and ask, how are they aligned? What is the best way to communicate with this person? Because I bet you all of the lawmakers are putting a lot of information into these AI systems, so you can get a preview into how they think. That also means that people can get a preview into how you think too. So just keep that in mind as you're developing things. And also ensure any AI technologies that you work with, how your data is managed within that system is very important. Second, make sure you start following individuals on LinkedIn. I think in particular is a platform that I think is useful. Center for Democracy and Technology, as Allison mentioned, is run by Alexandra Reeve Gibbons. Her father was Christopher Reeve. It's very much an advocate for us. Humane Intelligence, run by Ramon Chowdhury. CAIDP, the Center for AI and Digital Policy, with Merv Hickok. Follow me. I follow a lot of these individuals on LinkedIn and can share who those are so that you have access to really great information. And then, the same way I recently rewatched Crip Camp. Ran into Jim Lebrecht recently. And as I was watching this and also hearing about Judy Heumann's upcoming biopic, the 504 protests were achieved because we all worked together. Nothing about us without us. But with AI at a scale that is unprecedented, we actually have to work together now more than ever. And if someone tells you they don't have enough disability data to adjust their system, that's on the humans to address. And it's important to keep that pressure.
Thank you, Megan. Here it is, the big announcement. The third Thursday in May, you're all invited to come to where it all started, to Berkeley, California, for an AI summit on the 21st and 22nd of May at the Ed Roberts campus to develop an AI governance plan for independent living centers. This URL and this QR code is to help us stay in touch. This will take you to set up a short meeting with somebody on my team and discuss your engagement with AI and how we can stay involved. I want us to know that we can navigate this period together. And I think what a fitting place to come back to Berkeley at the Ed Roberts campus and work together in partnership to chart the path future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists.
Yes. Sure, one last one.
Can you give like a short web address that we might be able to find that information rather than a QR code that's really hard for someone else?
Thank you. Sure, the question is, can we provide a short web address instead of a QR code? I'll make sure that Theo and the team sends out a follow-up at the end of the conference with that LinkedIn address, with the URL address. We just made this up today, so it's really fresh. It's really fresh off the presses.
Fresh off the press. You heard it here, folks. Dr. Victor Pineda, Megan Bentley, Rylan Rogers, Maria Town, and Allison Sutton-Levy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, B. Cavello.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm just going to say a couple words really quickly. Thank you to this amazing panel. That was absolutely fantastic. If everybody could just start clearing out of the room, we do need to start getting set up for the luncheon. We do have coffee and tea out there, sponsored by Airbnb, so enjoy.